Hello. We've got with us here Gav Thorpe. Wave, Gav.
Hello, that's me.
And Andy Chambers.
Hello.
Right, okay, so these two guys are the designers of the forthcoming Sláine Miniatures game from Warlord Games, which we've just been playing today in the Warlord Games shop. That's where we're situated. If you hear any background noise, it's shoppers in the shop. Right, so guys, tell us a bit about the game. First of all, it's something you wrote years ago, isn't it now, really?
A couple of years. It was pre-pandemic, and it kind of extended out longer than we'd intended to for the design time on it anyway.
Yes, but it is but of course it was written even longer ago than that. In that it's an update and a conversion, I suppose, of the original sort of 2000 AD rules that we wrote for Sláine Dog. So it's been around a while.
Yeah, so it uses a similar system to
the core system is identical. One of the things that took a while for us, because first flush I kind of changed a few things, going, oh, it's a fantasy game, you know, we'd changed some of the stats and stuff like that. And the more I kind of like read the community for Sláine Dog and Judge Dredd had come out at that point, and they really valued the fact that there was direct crossover between the two, that they use the same mechanisms. So I actually went back into Sláine and made it more similar to the preceding two games, because that's A, you don't want to have to teach people, you know, two sets of rules that are kind of the same but they're a bit different. So we kind of honed it down to a few distinct changes for Sláine to make it into a heroic fantasy game as opposed to a Western gunfight style game. But other than that, we try to leave it alone as much as possible, because there's actually a lot of value in that, of it being a continuous system that just grows in different directions to cover different subject matter, which would, to be fair, was always kind of the idea of doing the 2000 AD games in the first place.
Cool. So those players all recognise the dice and the tokens.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Activation system, all that sort of stuff is all the same. Stats are the same.
Yes. I mean, one of the things we identified early on across the games was using the cards and the scenarios to add to a lot of the story. So the profiles of the characters, the models is one way of doing it, but then actually going into the strips and looking at how do these stories play out slightly differently. So with Sláine Dog, there was very much the idea of the setup, the game, and the payoff, because that's the way it works. With Sláine, it's very much sort of like some aggro starts, things start to kick off, Sláine kills a lot of people, and then probably gets annoyed and warps out and kills more people. So again, looking at that escalation and how those fights come about to add the character to the game. So the mechanics are very similar, but actually the game plays quite differently. One with the tweaks from like the way the fighting works, but also the way the cards work and interact with the scenarios gives it a lot of the flavour.
Yeah, the cards are obviously a very important part of the game, and the supernatural element of the world comes in via the cards a lot, doesn't it? Really, with the
when you look at the Sláine strip, I mean, ultimately there's a lot of choppy big barbarian with an axe sort of thing, but the story behind that is a cosmic battle. This great cosmic battle going on between the Droon Lords, who are trying to use their sour magic to steal the Earth magic and so forth, and the Earth tribes trying to resist that, and Slaine's their champion. So Sláine is the champion of the Earth tribes fighting against the Droon Lords, and we wanted to try and portray that as more than just a on the tabletop, like slugging each other. So there's a whole system of magic, and it builds into the scenarios and the terrain about that cosmic battle and the alignments going on of the spheres.
Yeah. You answered a crucial question of mine before we played, which was, can Sláine be killed? So well done, Andy, for answering that.
That's pretty positive. Yeah, if you get too rash with it, yes. Absolutely, even Sláine.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in our game, we were using one of the more basic scenarios from the rule book, weren't we, or from the scenario book?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's probably
I wouldn't use the word basic.
No, not basic necessarily. You might have one or two more heroes, perhaps, or low-level heroes in a regular game, or maybe slightly more Droons and Skull Swords and Earth Warriors and stuff. But it was fairly involved with the blood points and things like that. And that's one of the things, is each scenario tends to have a thing. There's not lots and lots of stuff going on, but there's very much a focus of. So this one, we're rededicating the shrine or the sacred site, but also there's another one where you might be just Sláine and Ukko have rocked up and they're trying to steal stuff, and you're basically trying to cart off heavy objects.
Run off with the loot and things like that.
But so are the Droons. So again, what you're doing is you can throw them into, you can dedicate them to the cosmic powers, as it were. So it's not just about, for Sláine maybe taking the gold, but actually Nest or Maeve or whoever else, they're taking stuff from sacred sites and are trying to earn favour or support the power of their deity, sort of thing. So there's usually quite enough going on. Just with the normal, sort of like with the feats, the boons and the blood points. The scenarios just add another layer beneath that.
Yeah, the scenario we played, I mean, as with the other games, as with Strontium Dog and Judge Dredd, we've done like Gav wrote a little scenario set of 3 scenarios to teach you the basics of the games. The first one's very simple, second one introduces some more things. This was the third one, so it's kind of like all the moving parts are involved in this one. It's a smallish number of figures, as you touched on there, just the starter set contents, but it's using all of the full rules at that point, so not too basic. Okay. Just elaborate a bit on the blood points part of the game, because they were changing hands very rapidly or coming and going. How do they work?
That's probably one of the most significant things for this game compared to the other ones. So previously we've had like armory cards and then leave the big mega chicanery cards, which add a lot of like the character and narrative to the games, whereas this time there's a whole system behind it. You have boons, which are kind of like more support role kind of magic spells, and then you have feats, which the heroic warriors, the combat warriors, use to give themselves bonuses in combat. Now the boons require blood points, so you earn blood points by overkilling enemies and doing lots of damage, but also doing scenario based objectives, and you then spend them, so they're a currency you earn in the game and then expend to have boons or to fulfill scenario objectives. So for example, in this one I was able to increase the fight stat of my troops and keep that going, which proved critical at the end when Sláine was surrounded by the half dead. Actually that was basically 4 extra dice they were rolling, which was
it turned them from being into like not really a threat into a major threat
so
in that
it's
case, because it was a good use of your boons.
And it's partly that resource management side of all games where you're like, because there's not, you're thinking about the order of your activations, but also actually, where am I going to spend my blood points? Do I want to attack this guy first, or do I move this guy first and earn some more blood points so that I'll be able to actually use this boon to support him? So there's a whole, that cosmic battle isn't just a theoretical thing, it directly affects how you play on the tabletop. It's not just a narrative.
It's your mana supply for your spells and stuff like that, basically, is our representation of that cosmic battle.
And then that plays into the campaign system quite a bit as well. Again, that the to and fro, the terrain rules also play into that cosmic battle. The terrain, if it's on your side, because everything's steeped in magic, and it's either sour magic or earth magic, and you can tap into it and do different things depending on whether that's a dank, horrible marsh or a lovely, beautiful pool of earth power and stuff like that. So we try to infuse that into all the aspects of the game, make it worth moving around the tabletop, interacting with the terrain, that kind of stuff, not just bundling into the middle and basically rolling.
Because that's the big danger, because it's a close combat game at the end of the day. Most panels of Sláine are him leaping in the middle of a bunch of skull swords with an axe, and you can't just replicate that as that's the entirety of the game. We move together, we roll dice, and that's the end of that. We want a more dynamic game than going on. Plus there's characters in Sláine which aren't combat characters. I mean, Urko and Nest to a large extent aren't really combat characters, so they need to be able to fulfill a supporting role.
Slightly disappointed that Urko couldn't persuade Sláine into a warp spasm in this game. We didn't quite
it's more case of getting the dice out. The warp spasms are not an automatic thing by any means.
No.
He's got to lose his cool, hasn't he?
That's right, he has to lose his cool. He has to go mad in a combat and lose his cool.
And Urko's quite good at making him lose his cool.
Absolutely. You can always make him lose his cool. He's I say he's a support character, so he can also help keep Sláine going through injuries and stuff like that. In my game, I ran him off to go and try and protect Nest, somewhat foolishly, because he should be like a backup character for Sláine more than anything else, to let him do all the pointy end stuff.
Well, it's a great game, and it really does. I mean, I must admit, I've not read the comic strip since 1982 or something. It all came flooding back, all the characters and their characteristics, which come across in the tabletop game, which is fantastic, because surely that's what you were trying to do, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the going to the comics and seeing what's in the comics and drawing that out onto the tabletop has always been the #1 mission for for these games. So with Stronty Dog, it was like, so yeah, it's the Western gunfighter's place. With this, it's very much Sláine running around chopping up skull swords, and then your group models can often just come back, so you can feed warriors into Sláine. So we didn't have to make them. You didn't have to have too many models on the tabletop at one time. But as we saw here, you still get that idea of him having to wade through troops to get to what he wants to do, and vice versa. You know, the Earth tribes can start getting into the way of characters like Elfric and Slough Feg and the more powerful Droon characters as well. And but also, yeah, it's just, you know, the art, being able to draw on the artwork for the books.
It's always the great pleasure of the 2000 AD guys.
Using
like,
the quotes.
First thing you have to do is like, oh, what a shame! I now have to read a bunch of 2000 AD strips.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And go through and like sieve out, sort of like, so what does happen in all these strips? Because they often fall into a kind of a pattern of the stories being told, and you sort of like try and, you know, tap into that as much as possible in the course of the game.
Yeah, and you've done a great job of making that interactive, so those comic books interactive, so yeah, well done. If you can just make sure that Sláine wins next time, Andy, that'd be appreciated.
It's very likely.
Yes, if our previous tests were anything to go by, there was a reason that we were heavily lading how much Sláine just murders everyone. I say, well done, Gav. I think that's a bit of a first.
Yes,
See him get dragged
it's got
down
it's
like that.
got close sometimes, and then he's managed to just get through, or usually nest, or, you know, finishes the mission, or vice versa. The Droon Lord is doing, because the Droon Lord is doing, Droon and the Nesta tend to be chasing each other or trying to avoid each other around the weird stone, while they try and pile on the blood points ready for their invocation. So,
but he'll be back to fight another day.
Well, as I was saying, he wasn't dead. He just got knocked over the head. He's now been bundled onto a skyship for another.
That's right.
adventure.
Dragged off to go and be presented to Slough Feg as this great prize. You see,
Which is what he wanted all along.
Mission. Yes, indeed. That was the secret plan from the start.
Right. Okay. Thanks very much, fellas. Cheers.
Thank you.
This video has been brought to you by WI Prime, Wargames Illustrated magazine's online members club. View more videos or find out more about WI Prime by following these links.